Okay, let me show you where we're at. So, I got the tuning condenser in as I showed you last time, and that's the grid lead there for that one. These three wires are actually for the push button tuning. I don't have the tubes in place. I do have the speaker in place, as you can see, and it's all connected up. There's the grid over here, so everything's intact. I put the dial indicator slash speaker faceplate in place, and that's kind of where we're at. I soldered my grounds to the tuning condenser here. Those are in, so everything's in place there. This tape's on here because it's holding the cardboard in front of the speaker cone so I don't put my finger through it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I added the original piece of dial cord that actually controls this shutter that tells you whether or not the radio is on or off. It's got the red for when it's off and the yellow or orange for when it's on, which I've cleaned that all up. What I managed to do, there was supposed to be a spring from here to here, and I've managed to lose it. I managed to lose a couple of screws too. I think the spring and I think a couple of screws I've lost are in one of these someplace, but I've looked in every place I can think of to look and I can't find it. That's what happens when you take something apart like 6 months, 5 or 6 months, and then you go putting it back together later. And I have my photos that I took and I have my video, so I know where the stuff goes. It's just I can't find the actual parts. Doesn't help being half senile either, but anyway, so I went to my local Menards this morning and to find a spring. So this is a new dial cord. This is the spring that actually goes onto the tuning wheel, but there was a very similar spring that hooked from this line here to that little hooky right there. So I went to the Menards today to see if I could locate a spring, and of course in all of their spring section they didn't go small enough. They came like a size bigger than that. But I happen to be looking around the rest of the store, and this is what you got to do. You got to be able to improvise. So look what I found in the store. I found this plate hanger set, and guess what? The spring is exactly perfect, other than I need to make it the length I want it to be. And so for, I think I paid $2 for that. I got 2 springs, so I'll have one for the future. So you never know, might use a wire or might use the hook for something later on, for something for my wife in the house, but for now I'm using the springs for this radio. So I'm going to see if I can get one of these springs off this hanger, and we will just put it for here. Once I figure out the length that I need, I'll cut it to length and we'll have that. So I'm pretty happy about that, because I was a little bummed originally that I couldn't find the one that I needed. So right now you can see it's actually not too far off, but I'll probably wind up shortening it a little bit. So I put it on there. You know, it actually might be about right the way it is. Let me get a hook put on that spring and we'll see what it is. Alright, I didn't even cut any length of it off. It's just actually perfect. It's not hardly expanding any it, but it's returning it perfect. And if you see it from the front, which I'll show you obviously from the front, it's exactly where it needs to be. So I think that's going to work just fine. I was strong enough to turn the thing without a knob on it. But yeah, that's going to work good. It's going all the way back. That might could take another link. Let me take a couple links out of it. We'll take a couple links out of it. Okay, I took a couple of links out of it, and now it's definitely more positive. So that's perfect. Spring worked perfect. So now I've got to wind or route, not wind, I guess it's sort of winding, the tuning cord. So that means I probably am going to have to resituate you guys for you to see the front at the wheel. Otherwise, I think what I may do is go ahead and wrap it around the wheel and get my situation coming back first, and then I'll wrap it around the pulley so you guys can see. Let me get that started and I'll bring it back. Okay, so I've got the dial cord loosely on there. I'm not 100% certain I'm 100% right the way I've got it run, but right now I've got it on there, other than I got to get this end and this other spring or loop on here, because there's actually a loop that goes on that little tab right here, and that spring's the one that tensions it. But before I do that, I have to get the dial pointer on there, which I've loosely put on the back side, but I need to get the actual indicator on there first. Now if you guys remember, originally the indicator was all bowed and warped and looked terrible and filthy. I actually managed to clean it up some. I've got it perfectly straight. It's no longer bowed or warped. I just got to glue it on here. Now it's not perfect, but it's old, but it's readable, and it's not in bad shape actually. You can read it pretty good. I mean, it's got some marks and stuff on it, but I'm not sure how much of this will be viewable through the actual lens that I'm going to make for it, but I like the fact that it's original, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this back on here so that I can try and get the pointer on the original marks up here for setting it up, which I believe are these right here. Not positive it's these right here, but I think it's that little one right there, and that little one right there is where it should be with it closed, and that's where I've got it right now with it closed. So I'm going to get this glued on, get the pointer on there, and we'll see what we can do as far as this springing thing. Okay, so that's my hot water heater you hear in the background, if you hear that burning. So I've got the dial string on there. It took me quite a while actually, because in my original notes and in my original photos and a little video I made myself, I said I had a single turn wrapped around the big wheel, but I didn't. As it turns out, there was 2 turns wrapped around that big wheel, but apparently the big fat string made it so I couldn't see it. But she's on there now, and works perfectly fine. And I got my pointer on there and all lined up. I got the bezel paper on there, so it's working really good. Works really good. I'll show you the back here in a second, but I did want to show you. I was going to zoom in a little bit. The on-off piece. So there's on, there's off, on, off. On, off. So that's pretty cool. And I guess they did that because they don't have indicator lights, because it's a battery radio and they didn't want to burn more battery. So that's cool. Let me get your off tripod. I'll try and show you the back stringing routing. Alright, so there's the stringing routing. Comes up, goes over that one, under that one, over that one, under the dial pointer, around that one, back down, over this one, and back down. But there's 2 wraps, 2 full wraps around the big wheel. There's my new spring. Put it for the on-off indicator. And so that's how it was. Go back around front. So there's where it wraps around the little tuning adjusting wheel. I think I have 2 full wraps around that, about 2.5 maybe full wraps around that. But everything's working really good. Got a good spring tension on both springs, and so pretty good. Alrighty, so I guess I'll get the rest of this put back together again. I got to get the push button tuner cleaned up and mounted on there. So we'll come back after that.